I feel like these sentiments are a very good place to stop, but there are two other things I wanted to just give a little time for, which is hard to move on from. But one other question came through about the current state of telecoms in Gaza, how people are sending footage out, how are people communicating with eSIMs, et cetera.
Okay, that's really a not easy challenge, and sometimes we almost lost our life because sending some picture here or there. Uh, I'm not sure to say fortunately or unfortunately. The Israelis, because they are moving inside Gaza, they are using. They need internet all the time, even if it is like from private companies, just because the internet is something like air now. You are breathing, so even it is right. They are bombarding most of our network and fibers and or telecoms. But the Israeli, because Gaza is very small strip and surrounded by troops of Israel. So they are bought a lot of Israeli towers. So we bought a lot of Israeli SIMs before the war, some, and in the war we bought eSIMs, Israeli eSIMs, some of them, and some of them international. So we make like some solutions uh, to 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 use this SIMs and eSIMs. But the challenge what? You can't use this eSIMs and SIMs and some if we have in some parts of the neighborhood we have some fiber still working. We can't use them in a safe places because you need to go for higher buildings, and that will expose you for the danger of drones, because sometimes if so any movement, especially in the night, they will bombarding this spot, and that happened many times. So sometimes we just put the laptop on the rooftop and with a small battery and to charge it, and we put a cell phone next to it and just leave this place the whole night to upload the materials. So if they bombed just the laptop, not the humans. That's one of the solutions. We have many solutions like that. We try every time to find uh, here spot or to make another spot. Unfortunately, we lost Hassan, one of our crews, Hassan Hamad, while he trying to upload the materials. He made a room in his home in the rooftop, and they targeted him by a missile, just target his body while he's sending the materials to us. It was just materials of civilians flee the area that they invaded by tanks, and the materials you can see very obviously women and children fleeing the area, and they bombarded and killed him just because he was documenting the testimonies of the people who fled the area they invaded and attacked. So it was a challengeable and risky mission just to upload the material to let the world see what's going on in Gaza.
Wow. I'm sorry for that loss. Lastly, what I'd love to hear you guys address is just the question of foreign reporters being allowed in and where we're at with, media coverage of the war writ large. And maybe, I mean, again, I'm very interested in what each of you have to say on this, but it's crazy that we're still at a place where there is no access for foreign reporters. And yeah, Laila, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this to start.
Yeah, I think it's always a tricky kind of needle to thread, because we don't want to in any way say that the coverage in Gaza isn't enough. I mean, journalists there, as you mentioned, have been killed in larger numbers in all previous conflicts in memory combined, and even before memory. And they're doing incredible, heroic, professional work day in and day out, sometimes for no pay, at great cost, while they're going through what everyone else, the same horrific circumstances as what they're documenting, losing family members, being displaced many times, no equipment, no food, no transportation. So they're incredibly heroic, incredibly professional. But at the same time, what we have seen is media coverage that either echoes some of the official Israeli narratives that we've seen, and many times those narratives have completely fallen apart under even just the least bit of scrutiny. And then we've also seen coverage that in no way rises to the sheer horror that we're seeing in Gaza day in and day out. And I think this is something that we need to confront as an industry. Why haven't we spoken out more about the killing of journalists in Gaza? Why haven't we tried as newsrooms to work with these journalists? I remember Kavitha saying when the NYPD was sent in to break up the protest, the takeover of Hamilton Hall at Columbia University, CNN had a student journalist, a Columbia student journalist, on the phone doing lives. And I remember Kavitha saying, why can't they do this with journalists in Gaza? Why can't they, have lives with them on the phone? At the time, communication made it possible for them to do that. So we've seen a failure to kind of work with the journalists. And then we've seen some efforts here and there of international journalists, American and European journalists saying, let us in. But they were very few and far between. And we haven't seen the kind of anger and demand to be let into Gaza that I think we would have seen if it were another country doing this, if it were another story. And I just think the kinds of efforts we've seen have in no way risen to really reflect how absolutely outrageous it is that the Israeli military has only let in journalists on these very curated kind of embeds with the Israeli military, and not independently to be able to cover the horrors that Palestinian journalists have been covering. And I think it's very clear why. Any journalist who would go in and see the fact that Gaza has been turned into a killing cage, and that every Palestinian, no matter their age or status in life, is a target, would come out saying the truth, just as we've seen American doctors who've been into Gaza who came out and how horrifying their testimony has been. It would be a very similar situation. So this is the Israeli government simply burying the truth and keeping the truth tellers out. And I hope that international journalists would be truth tellers in this situation.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything to add to that? That was a very
The only thing I would add is that I think about this honestly like every day, but I think this was around, it was in mid-November of 2023. It's very early on. And it was just before that first brief ceasefire, temporary ceasefire that took place towards the end of November 2023. But before it, there was a piece in Politico, and in it they quoted Biden administration sources talking about how they didn't want there to be a temporary ceasefire, any kind of ceasefire, because they didn't want foreign journalists to be let in, because they were worried it would be, then the public would have a change of attitude because of what they would see. And I think about that all the time, because when we have this situation of foreign journalists not being let in, it is staggering to me that the industry as a whole has not done more. One, has not done more to pressure Israeli authorities to be let in. Two, that there are still outlets doing embeds with the Israeli military, which at this point should be considered unethical. And three, I think, just reiterating what Laila said, at the end of the day, though, even if foreign journalists can't be let in, this shouldn't be an excuse not to work with Palestinian journalists. They're doing work at a level that I do not think anybody journalists outside of Gaza are capable of doing, frankly. And it is really, the industry has failed Palestinian journalists so abysmally when it comes to this. And I think, the question to me is, I wish the industry, I hope there will be change after this. I mean, after the Iraq War and the failures of the media with that, there was supposed to be some kind of reflection of like what went wrong. And I had the hope that maybe that would change. And now we've seen that in fact it didn't, and it's the same, if not worse. And I genuinely don't know what it's going to take for this industry to change that to be honest, like if they had been if the wider industry, the mainstream industry had been covering Gaza from the
Mhm.
beginning in the way that they covered, let's say, Ukraine,
Mhm.
I don't think that we would be here today talking about this right now.
Right. You guys, I think that's a really good place to end, unless any of you have anything else. I really thank you so much for spending your time with us. And if anyone watching hasn't seen the film, you have to watch it. And let it really sink in, and hopefully motivate more outlets to do these sort of collaborations, because I think what you guys really have proved is these collaborations are very possible and very important. And thank you for that. And I'm really glad to see the film getting so much attention. So
Thanks for
anything
organizing
else
this.
from any of you?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
I'm gonna end the call. I'm gonna give you all each a ring after, because it always feels so rough to just end it.